Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Read and Reread. I am Angelia, and today I wanted to just share with you some thoughts and experiences from the book festival I went to this weekend, and also a little haul. I've got a few books while I was there. And this was the San Antonio Book Festival, which takes place once a year in downtown San Antonio, Texas, on the grounds of the public library's main branch, which is also adjacent to one of the campuses of UT San Antonio. It's not the main campus where my daughter's studying, but I think it's the arts campus. So there's a number of different buildings and grounds, and it's kind of an indoor-outdoor festival. Lots of vendors, food truck area, and then indoors they use the public meeting spaces in the library and other buildings. They have some big tents set up. I just want to walk you through it, what we did, what we saw, and I do have a little bit of footage and photos, but not very much, because I am the world's worst vlogger. Every time I go somewhere and I think, oh, I'm going to film and do lots of pictures and films and make a video, it never works out because I think that my multitasking skills kind of retired with my career because I am just scattered. I cannot enjoy what I'm doing, and I'm at this festival with my family. I'm trying to have fun. I cannot do that and get good footage at the same time. I just cannot. I go long stretches of time and then I think, oh yeah, the film. It's basically how I operate all day long. All day long I'm like, oh yeah, the tea was brewing. Oh yeah, I never went back and got the stuff out of the dryer. I don't know. I've turned into this quintessential retired lady who should be able to handle her roster of events, but is just perpetually scattered. What is the deal? Okay, that's my disclaimer for the bad imagery in this video. So we get to the festival. We had to look for somewhere to park. The garage was already full. So we went to this park that's a couple blocks away that Emma had parked at previously. And that was a good bet. And we found a spot. But because it took a while to do all of that, we were too late to go to the first session that I wanted to attend, which was with poet Naomi Shihab Nye. So we used that extra time to explore the outdoors offerings, first of all. So there's a long... when you first come in, there's a long row of vendors. It's all outside. The day was nice. It didn't get super hot. It probably got up into the upper 80s. So it was starting to get hot. It was warm, but it wasn't terrible. But it was a beautiful sunshiny day. So we explored the vendor tents, different sponsors of the event, writers organizations, university presses, and things like that. I think this was at the UT University Press. This was a book that kind of caught my eye that I want to see if I can find at a library. It looked kind of fun. And so we collected some free things. I always like, there's a tent for the special collections from UT San Antonio libraries, and they always have these neat little zines highlighting different special collections. So this year I got this one about neighborhood redlining. It has a bunch of pages and fold-outs about redlining efforts in the San Antonio neighborhoods, the history of that, and also one from their LGBTQ special collections. And they have a really cool, I guess, collection of ephemera and other items from local queer history. I hope this has not been defunded. And last year I got some other ones. So that's always kind of cool. Then we went to the official booksellers tent. So there's an independent bookstore called Nowhere Books in San Antonio, which is owned by author Jenny Lawson. And this is the sponsor bookstore for the event. And so they have a large tent, and they have books by all of the authors that are appearing. Their new book that they are highlighting, and then usually some backlist books. The only problem about this tent is that you can't browse. It's so intensely crowded. And I'll throw in I took some pictures, I know, of inside this tent. If you know what author or book you're looking for, you can find it, but that's about all you could do. You cannot just explore and browse these books because it is wall-to-wall people. You're trying to stick your arm in between people to get your book, and it's just, you're I can't do this kind of crowd anymore. As soon as I get that packed in, I just start thinking about COVID and mystery illnesses that haven't even happened yet, and we're all jammed in, and that's just bleh, yuck. So it was very, very crowded, but I navigated through it and got a book that I specifically wanted to pick up, and then some books for Emma and Cooper that they wanted. I will share that, what I got, in just a minute. Then we made our way over. We still had a little time until the next speaker that I wanted to see. So we went down to the bookseller, Cellar Like a Basement. And this is the used bookstore I've talked about a number of times. It is the used bookstore of the Friends of the Library Association for the San Antonio Public Library. So they have this wonderful space in the basement where it's just a really great used bookstore. And they were having a half price sale. So it was a little intense again, not as bad as that tent, but I did wind my way through, and I found a few treasures, and then one book for Emma. And then it was on to an author event, and we kind of sat in the back row of this big, very, very full author event tent to see Cristina Rivera Garza. She had a huge crowd. She has a new novel called, I know it starts with the word death. I'm going to put it, Death Takes Her, or something like that. I'm going to put the title up here, but that's the book she was talking about. I stopped in because I loved the memoir that she wrote that I read last year called Liliana's Invincible Summer. And I don't know if she ever got around to talking about that, because we sat in the back because we were going to have to sneak out before it was over, because there was an overlap with the next author that we really wanted to see. So, but it wasn't awkward because it was so packed and we were way in the back. So, and there was multiple exits. So then we went on to the next author that we were very excited about, which, well, there was a pairing of authors, and the one author we didn't know anything about, but I did enjoy his comments and discussion. But we went to see Fernando Flores, who wrote Brother Bronte, and he's written some other books as well. I'll talk about that book a little bit more in the haul part of the video, but his previous books have great titles. There's one called Tears of the Truffle Pig, and another one called, I think it's called The Death to the Bullshit Artists of South Texas. Intriguing. And that is where he's from. He's from South Texas. He now lives in Austin. He actually works at an independent bookstore in Austin. He didn't talk about that, but I sleuthed around and found out some more facts. But he was really funny, really interesting. Steven's read the book and loved it, and we now all have copies and we're all going to read it. But he said that Fernando's personality was much like the style of the book, so I'm really interested to get to that. And then the other author in that session was James Wade, who is another Texas author that I'm not familiar with, who he described his writing. He said that his first novel was a Western, and so now he gets categorized that way, and he does like to wear Western wear, but he actually would describe his book style as Southern Gothic and historical fiction. So I haven't tried him, but he was interesting too. It was an interesting combination of Texas writers and their perspectives. And the moderator did a really great job of asking interesting questions and then stepping back. Some of these moderators, they're so excited that they just talk and talk and talk all about their own thoughts and impressions about the books, and they use up too much of the talking time when it should mostly be the authors. But this moderator did a great job. After that, we had a little break. We sat outside and had some snacks, and then we went to see Leila Lalami, the author of The Dream Hotel, back inside the library again. In this case, I had read the book, Stephen's halfway through the book, and Emma has yet to read the book, and Cooper. So everything we saw was like some kind of arrangement of who'd read it and who wants to read it and who hadn't read it. Or having just read that, and I've been talking about that book a lot with Stephen, and it's one of those books, it's kind of growing and percolating in my mind ever since I finished it. And one thing that I thought was interesting is that I know that when I reviewed it on the channel, I talked about it being not as intense as some dystopian books, so that maybe it would be a place to start. And Stephen has called me out and said, "Why did you say that? This book is completely terrifying." So I guess just the climate of claustrophobia and the surveillance um, atmosphere that is so close to our own reality. The more I think about it, it is kind of creeping up on me and being more and more disturbing. But it's a great novel. And she talked about how her original idea for the story happened. She started this book 10 years ago and then put it aside and was working on something else, and then she came back to it. And her original idea, the germ of the idea happened when one morning she was waking up and her phone gave her this notification that said if she hurried right now, she could make it to this particular yoga class. And she was really kind of shocked because she had never entered anything about that yoga class at a local studio into her phone. She hadn't put it in a calendar or in a reminder or signed up for it through her phone. Somehow her phone had just tracked her patterns, and that she frequently did attend this certain day and time of this class, and sent her this suggestion. And that was the kernel for her thinking about the role of technology and surveillance and data and algorithms in our lives, and potentially harmful circumstances that could arise. So that was really interesting to hear. And that was kind of the end of the sessions that we did attend. There was another one at the end. I was thinking about what it was going to be, like a long stretch to wait until that one came up, and we'd kind of seen all the other exhibits and everything already. There's also a big kids section at this festival with outdoor games and presenters and children's authors. And there's also, oh yeah, there's a book signing area too. So we did get some of the books signed that we purchased. Okay, so let's move on to the haul portion of the video. All right, so in the Nowhere Books tent, I picked up and put down, well, I knew for sure this one book that I did buy, and then there was a couple others I was thinking about. And honestly, one of the books I was thinking about buying was The Antidote by Karen Russell. She's the presenter that I didn't see that was at the end of the event, and I also didn't buy her book because it was big and heavy and it was right at the beginning. And I was like, oh no, I'm gonna have to carry it all day. So I decided if I decide I want to read that, I'll get it later or find it at a future time. I did get Brother Bronte by Fernando Flores. I love the cover of this book. It is a dystopian novel set in Texas. The year is 2038. The formerly bustling town of Three Rivers, Texas is a surreal wasteland. We just drove through Three Rivers the other day, and so did Fernando Flores. He said he had driven past either through this town or past the exit for this town so many times and started wondering about it. And we realized that we also drive past this town all the time. Under the authoritarian thumb of its tech industrialist mayor, Pablo Henry Crick, the town has outlawed reading and forced most of its mothers to work as indentured laborers at the Big Tex fish cannery, which poisons the atmosphere and lines Crick's pockets. Scraping by in this godforsaken landscape are best friends Proserpina and Neftali. One of Three Rivers' last literate citizens, Neftali hides and reads the books of the mysterious renegade author Jasmine Manel Rivas, whose last novel, Brother Bronte, is finally in Neftali's possession. But after a series of increasingly violent atrocities committed by Crick's forces, Neftali and Proserpina, with the help of a wounded Bengal tigress, three scheming triplets, and an underground network of rebel Tias, rise up to reclaim their city, and in the process unlock Rivas' connections to Three Rivers itself. So he talked about in his presentation that the humans in this story used to be in a band, and so it's kind of a band breakup story, and it's a story about literacy and reading. It's a story about corporate takeovers. The town kind of has kind of this company town kind of 19th century situation, and he did cite several 19th century authors and social circumstances as his influences for writing this book. It's kind of wheels off, it's kind of crazy, it's dystopian, it sounds adventurous, and I am really excited to read that. And then we went down to the bookseller, and I found a few things there as well. I got a copy of Waiting for Godot by Samuel Beckett. This play is coming up later on this year in the Endless Drama, a play reading event that I am hosting, and I didn't have a copy. It's written in French, but then translated by the author, Samuel Beckett, into English. It first opened in 1953 at the Left Bank Theater in Paris, and it is, of course, one of our most famous 20th century plays. Let's see. Vladimir and Estragon wait near a tree on a barren stretch of road, inhabiting a drama spun out from their own consciousness. The result is a comical wordplay of poetry, dreamscapes, and nonsense, which has been interpreted as a somber summation of mankind's inexhaustible search for meaning. Well, there you go. And so while looking for plays, I found a classic novel that I never heard of by an author that I have heard of because he appeared in January in Endless Drama. So I found this really weird thing. It's a novel called War with the Newts by Karel, who wrote RUR, or Rossum's Universal Robots, that we read back in January. That was a science fiction play forecasting a time when robot labor has been so finely tuned that the robots are hard to distinguish from humans, but eventually they kind of stage an uprising. And a similar type of uprising seems to occur in this novel. So maybe it's some similar themes. This novel was published in 1936, and here's the description. One of the great anti-utopian satires of the 20th century, an inspiration to writers from Orwell to Vonnegut, at last in modern translation. At last in the 1980s when this paperback was made. Man discovers a species of giant intelligent newts and learns to exploit them so successfully that the newts gain skills and arms enough to challenge man's place at the top of the animal kingdom. Along the way, Karel Capek satirizes science, runaway capitalism, fascism, militarism, journalism, even Hollywood, yet he presents all the events on a comically human rather than spectacular scale. So I had never heard of this. I picked it up for 50 cents because it just sounded so bizarre and curious about this author, and the theme sounded awfully similar to RUR. And then, of course, just newts? Giant newts? What? And then when I got home and I looked it up, the book has these really high review ratings. I was quite surprised, and apparently it's a big underground classic of science fiction and satire that I just never heard of. So I have no idea if I'm going to like this book or not, but I couldn't pass it by. And then I found two books that I was quite excited to find in the fiction section. And the first one is a copy of Nora, Webster by Colm Toibin. Love this author, and this I knew about this book, but I haven't read it, or I don't know much about it really. But I know that Nora Webster is a character who her name has appeared in other books, and I know that she's a person who lives in the same town that Eilish from Brooklyn, the novel Brooklyn, where she comes from in Ireland. And then she goes back to that town again in Long Island. And in one of those books, I know for sure Nora Webster is mentioned, maybe both, I'm not sure. And I think it's possible that he has other books that also take place in that town or intersect. He's got this fictional Irish town that he uses from time to time. So Nora Webster lives there, and I think she's a widowed mother. Set in Wexford, England, Colm Toibin's eighth novel introduces the formidable, memorable, and deeply moving Nora Webster. Widowed in her 40s with 4 children and not enough money, Nora has lost the love of her life, Maurice, or maybe it's Morris, I don't know. I'm being influenced by Ian Forster. the man who rescued her from the stifling world to which she was born, and now she fears she may be drawn back into it. Wounded, strong-willed, clinging to secrecy in a tiny community where everyone knows your business. I know that to be true from reading those other books. Nora is drowning in her own sorrow and blind to the suffering of her young sons who have lost their father. Yet she has moments of stunning empathy and kindness, and when she begins to sing again after decades, she finds solace, engagement, a haven herself. So I am feeling a complicated and sometimes difficult character, and I think it's going to be really good when I get to it. I have another Colm Toibin book already planned out that I'm going to be reading sooner than this one. This one's going to have to take a ticket, but I was really happy to find a copy of it for merely $1. And then last but not least, when I was in the New Books tent, I already have the Dream Hotel, but they had some of Leila Lalami's, and you know what? I think I said Leila Lalami earlier in this video, but I found out at the event that it's Leila Lalami. I've been mispronouncing it, so I stand corrected. But I was looking at some of her backlist paperbacks that were on this table as best I could, but it was, as I've already mentioned, the crowd. So I decided I didn't really need to buy a full price older paperback. I could get that somewhere else at a better cost. But good things come to those who wait, even if they only have to wait a couple hours, because I found a copy of The Other Americans down there in the cellar, again for $1. And this was one of her previous novels. And this one, I don't know, it won a prize or was shortlisted for a prize or something. I'll put it up on the screen. I can't remember. Tell me if you have read this or any of these other older books. But here's what it is about. It's about the suspicious death of a Moroccan immigrant. At once a family saga, a murder mystery, a love story, informed by the treacherous fault lines of American culture. Late one spring night, Driss Garawi, a Moroccan immigrant living in California, is walking across a darkened intersection when he is killed by a speeding car. The repercussions of his death bring together a diverse cast of characters. Garawi's daughter Nora, a jazz composer, who returns to the small town in the Mojave that she thought she had left for good. His widow Miriam, who still pines after her life in the old country. Ephraim, an undocumented witness whose fear of deportation prevents him from coming forward. Jeremy, an old friend of Nora's and an Iraq War veteran. Coleman, a detective who is slowly discovering her son's secrets. Anderson, a neighbor trying to reconnect with his family, and the murdered man himself. Okay, so it's one of these books where the chapters jump around to all these different people, and collectively they are all weaving together a story. And I love that kind of structure, so I'm really excited about this. And it just sounds sad, but it sounds really good. And so I think that's it. That's my little haul. That's my festival report. We really like this festival because it's not overwhelming. It's one day. It's all kind of, you can see the whole thing when you get there. It has a really great roster of authors. There's no admission fees or tickets. And so you can spend as much or little money as you wish. We brought our own lunch this time as well, because the food trucks are kind of So we had Emma made us sandwiches, and I brought some fruit and just different stuff. So it's just a very pleasant day. A good time was had by all, and I hope you enjoyed this report. Let me know if you've read any of these books in my little haul, and I will see you soon. Bye-bye.